You're watching Telecom TV and welcome to our special program on the Open RAN tipping point, moving from early adopter to early majority. I'm Guy Daniels, and during the next hour we will highlight the transformative journey of virtual and Open RAN technology, exploring the pivotal roles played by industry leaders Intel, Wind River and Dell Technologies. Why a tipping point? Because we are starting to see a convergence of key factors such as cutting-edge hardware that now meets virtualization demands, robust partnerships amongst vendors and CSPs, and essential field experiences that are shaping strategic development. During this program, we are going to discuss the lessons learned, partnerships forged, and innovations that are driving this incredible shift in the telecoms landscape. But we also want to hear from you. So any questions you have on Open RAN, then please send them in using the Q&A form on this website. We'll have time to address questions towards the end of the show. To set the scene, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Clarence Reynolds. Early this week, he held a discussion on the current state of the industry and the importance of open ecosystems, standards, certifications, and partnerships.
Thanks, Guy. Open RAN has reached a tipping point in telecom marked by a convergence of factors. Here to explore why this moment is significant and the driving forces behind it are Cristina Rodriguez, VP of Intel's Network and Edge Group and GM of its Wireless Access Network division, and Paul Miller, Chief Technology Officer at Wind River. Welcome to you both. Cristina, I want to start with you. The tipping point is defined as the point at which a series of small changes or incidents become significant enough to cause a larger, more important change. What are your thoughts on the path that Open RAN has taken to get here and why we've reached this pivotal moment?
Well, first of all, there was a industry-wide realization that we needed a more modern network architecture. An architecture that would allow us to fulfill all the ambitions and all the use cases that we have in mind and that we want to offer. We needed a more modern network that will allow to have a wide ecosystem participation that lower the barrier of entry for new participants, and that is built in a common, open, full programmable platform based on general purpose processor, no purpose-built solutions, and that will unleash all the possibilities of innovation. So I would say that's number one. Number two is we needed a technology that supported that ambitions, right? And after many years of investing and creating new solutions, we're at a point where we can truly have a fully software-defined network. We can run the entire workload, the entire RAN workload on the CPUs and in a server architecture, a server-based network architecture that can process the entire RAN workload all the way to layer one, fully virtualized. That was the second one. And then the third one, I would say, is where we are in this journey, in this process. The operators, both brownfield, greenfield, across the entire world, started with proof of concept, lab trials, field trials, and now we're at a point where they are deploying at a scale, commercially at a scale, thousands of virtual cell sites, making it very clear that we are in a point of no return in this journey, and making very clear the benefits of this open software-defined network.
And Cristina, how do you see either business or technology pressures influencing this shift?
Yeah, great question. I would say there are three things that are putting pressure and encouraging this movement. Number one, 5G. We have been deploying 5G for a while now, for a few years now. There have been significant deployment made, but now it's time to monetize that investment. And there is an intention, obviously, to make that monetization happen not only in the public side, in the public network, but also private network, spanning enterprise and industry, traditional market, new market, right? And we need that modern network that I was talking about before to deliver new services, reduce the cost, just both in CapEx and OpEx, and then just in general unleash the limitless potential of innovation. And again, that can only be done to the full potential with an open software-defined, software upgradable network. So that I would say was the first pressure. Second one is our energy focus. Right? It is an industry mission. It is in every operator top priority to reduce their footprint, their energy footprints. We all know that the telecom industry is one of the most power intense from the consumption point of view industries in the planet, and the operators are looking for solutions to reduce again that power consumption. And with the open software defined network, you have a lot more possibilities of innovation, of it to optimize that energy efficiency and start breaking our energy curve. And then lastly, I would say artificial intelligence. We all know AI will be everywhere, from edge to cloud to network, everywhere. And every AI workload will be accessible in all the different vertical solutions. But the thing with RAN is you need an AI solution that matches the stringent performance per watt requirements that we have in the RAN in the RAN space. We need something that can be deployed, a solution, a capability that can be deployed in the virtual DU. That you don't have to go all the way to the data center, and especially once you are in the VDU, you cannot have somebody consuming enormous amount of power, having external power hungry components. So you want to have that capability again within the CPU in the same server architecture, within the same open and software defined network.
We know some of how we got here, Paul, but what happens next? What do you see as the larger, more important changes that we're moving into?
Thanks, Clarence. And, I think it's, as we talk about a tipping point event, it's really worth talking briefly about how we got here. And Intel and Wind River have been working together for many, many years, even predating the existence of cloud native technology that's now used extensively in virtualizing radio access network, and before Kubernetes, before 2014 even. And Intel has kind of emerged as a de facto standard for the processor platforms, the accelerator technologies, the network interface technologies that we use in our open source software. At the same time, though, as we looked at the legacy solutions for virtualizing technology, we realized that existing approaches weren't going to be sufficient. When you look at a radio access network, the need to support a geo-distributed architecture where you have tens of thousands of sites that are coming together as one virtualized cloud, even though they're fully geo-distributed, that required a different approach. And so Intel and Wind River co-founded an open source initiative that Christina was referencing, called Starling X, and that's hosted in the Open Infrastructure Foundation. And this is where we upstream all of this technology that we're talking about here. The enablement of Open RAN, virtualized RAN, and the high-scale deployments is all actually open source, done in an open community environment. Now, as we started working through that, we started seeing some amazing successes. Early adopters, such as Verizon, have now gotten to tens of thousands of nodes deployed, running in excess of 6 nines high performance. We've developed teams that have an understanding of how to operationalize these systems in the network. And as you'll see later on in this tipping point event, we have customers now talking to KPIs that exceed the performance of legacy RAN solutions, that edge sites can be deployed astonishingly at 90% less manpower time than the legacy approaches. And then finally, as we move forward into the future, we're starting to see the ecosystem really come together. The RAN providers, the infrastructure providers, the hardware systems providers such as Dell are coming together to perform integration prior to bringing it into the customer environment. And this is having a massive impact on operations TCO, lowering that for the customer, and lowering their effort and increasing their ease of adoption of these technologies. So really getting to that level where we've had this incredible amount of investment over many, many years in the Open RAN community, in the hardware architectures, in the virtualization technologies, and in the RAN applications. And then finally getting into deployment. Now, for multiple years of deployment at very, very high scale, we're truly at a tipping point where this technology can be adopted, it can be deployed. Now, to answer your question, as we move forward into the future, we've got some really exciting things happening. The amount of automation that's required in these disaggregated networks to really improve operations efficiency is driving AI and advanced automation capabilities into these platforms to really help solve these problems. At Mobile World Congress shortly, we'll be demonstrating some of those things in our booth, and we encourage you to stop by and see that. We'll also see, as Christina mentioned, new investments in power efficiency, in particular using the capabilities of Intel Xeon processors to manipulate dynamically PNC states in combination with the VDU workload, allows the radio access network application to dynamically manage the power consumption of the underlying platforms. And we're getting to a place where this is dramatically lower cost and more efficient as a fully software-defined architecture that's deployed in edge networks. So very excited about the future and very excited that we've finally reached a point where mass adoption of this technology can be taken forward in a very safe manner.
Thank you, Christina and Paul, for setting the scene. Now back to you, Guy, for further discussion on the future of the Open RAN landscape.
Thank you, Clarence. Well, I'm delighted to say that Christina and Paul have joined us live today, along with Manish Singh, CTO of the Telecom Systems business for Dell Technologies. Hello, everyone. Really good to see you all again. Thanks for joining us. We're going to feature a number of short presentations on Open RAN, but first I wanted to follow up on what was said in the discussion with Clarence. Manish, if I could start with you. We heard there that we're at this point where the ecosystem's converging with software and hardware vendors pre-integrating their solutions. So tell me more about Dell Technologies' involvement here and why you're partnering with Intel and Wind River.
Yeah, thank you, Guy. First of all, thanks for having me. We obviously have been partnering very closely with Intel, with Wind River to continue to advance the adoption and scaling of the Open RAN solutions. Just to start with, Christina talked about, bringing in the right server form factors and open platform. First and foremost, we had to get the right platform in place because when we are talking Open RAN, we are talking about deployments far out, not in the data center, at the cell sites, and on the edges of the network. So we started with a new platform called XR8000. It's a sled-based design designed for harsh environmentals, NEPS compliance, smaller form factor, et cetera, check all the boxes to bring the right server form factor that is suited for RAN deployments. Layered on top of it, then, we put the automation framework. So you can go and automate. And I think Paul touched on it, the importance of automation, especially when you are deploying infrastructure that's out and about. And how do you automate that and make sure not only day zero and day one, but day two, continuous lifecycle management. So we introduced infrastructure automation software. And case in point, just to share with you, one of our customers, Dish Networks, they used it and they have achieved the velocity of deploying 1,000 cell sites a week. So there is proof point of the velocity that can be achieved. But then we went further ahead and worked with Wind River very closely to create infrastructure block, which is really bringing our server platforms with Intel's Sapphire Rapids Insight and Wind River's CAS and the Dell Automation Software Suite, all tightly integrated, pre-validated, delivered to the customer's factory integrated, and having a unified support model where Dell fronts is providing the support, and we work very closely with Wind River to provide all levels of support that's needed. The objective is simplify, automate, create the pathways for scaling all these solutions, and it does require bringing the whole ecosystem together. The last thing I'll just say is, while we deliver the infrastructure block factory integrated with the unified support model, we also put an OTEL, our Open Telecom Ecosystem Lab, in place, which is where we convene and bring broader ecosystem into the mix, including the RAN workloads and the operator partners, where we do extensive validation, integration, performance testing, and more, and not do that once, but do it on a continuous basis with applying the CI/CD principle. So it's really bringing all of that together, and the end result is making it easier for operators to adopt, deploy, and clearly we are at a tipping point where we're seeing the acceleration of these adoptions and deployments.
Great. Thank you very much, Manish. And we're going to hear obviously a lot more about the various solutions and approaches later in this program. But Christina, let me turn to you now, because you outlined the technology and the business drivers that have got us to this tipping point. And you said that we're now at the point of no return. If the pieces are now all in place, what does the industry collectively need to do for Open RAN to really fulfill its potential?
Yes. So definitely the technology is ready, is here. We have come a very long way as an industry. And what I would say what we need to do now is two things. One, collaborate as an industry. What we have done, if you take, for example, what Wind River, Dell, and Intel have done, fantastic collaboration. We have invested in our own technologies, in our own roadmaps, and we also learned a lot in the last few years. So I would say those two things: collaborate with the entire ecosystem, and then number two, learn from the experience. Right? We have gone from proof of concept to lab trials to field trials to deployment at a scale. We know a lot by now. We know what works and what doesn't work. We know what we need to do first. We know what we shouldn't do. So let's share those learnings. Let's take those learnings and evolve the next steps. And again, I can't say enough about the collaboration between the three of us, Wind River, Dell, and Intel, how far we have come and how much we have accomplished so far, but also how much more plans we have for the future to accelerate and bring all the benefit that a software-defined network running on a server architecture will bring to the industry.
Thank you, Christina. And this is a great example of the collaboration you've been discussing there that's needed. Paul, let me finally turn to you. You quite rightly there highlighted the work you've done with Starling X as being an important factor in reaching this Open RAN tipping point. But what further contribution can developers and the open source community make in order to support the development of Open RAN?
Thanks, Guy. Well, certainly we're in exciting times with all of the adoption that Christina just summarized. One of the things I think that is really important here is that as we sit at this point in time with the mature Open RAN deployments and the adoption en masse of this technology, we're starting to finally see the realizations that were put in place as a thesis when Open RAN and virtualized RAN strategies were originally created. That being significant cost savings, more flexibility from a software-defined network, the ability to have competition right at every layer. If you look at the open source stack that's being used here, you have a hardware layer that Dell is here to talk about, that tight integration with the CAS layer that we have, the infrastructure that sits on top of the hardware that manages the virtualization of distributed cloud, and then the applications coming from the key vendors that provide radio access network functionality. And now that we've moved to an Open RAN disaggregated open source stack, that creates a new landscape where the service provider is in control of a competitive landscape. The hardware vendors, the infrastructure providers such as ourselves at Wind River, and the application vendors now have to continuously compete for their business for the life of the network. So there's really been a significant transformation in that. And as we move forward with Open RAN, the ability to now have flexibility in your choice between your core network assets and your edge network assets, having open interoperable APIs between them allows now competition to occur in an east-west manner as well. So we're starting to see a lot of those things come to bear. And then certainly a software-defined environment gives you a high level of flexibility, rapid time to market, and importantly, the ability to bring new applications and new revenue streams onto a virtualized platform. And as we look at the open source community, to your question, there's a lot of innovation and investment happening. I'd say that after the past couple of years that we're really focused on stabilizing the deployment and the core infrastructure that's used for Open RAN, we're now looking at high levels of automation. And as Christina mentioned, bringing in artificial intelligence to automate the network. As you look at a disaggregated solution with tens of thousands of sites, it's almost impossible for a human being to manage that. So using advanced automation and AI is a real place of innovation in the open source community now. Additionally, we're seeing new applications such as cellular vehicle to infrastructure and bringing edge systems like industrial and medical and automotive as the connected devices in 5G that have applications that coexist with the O-RAN application at the edge of the network. So a tremendous amount of innovation possible and tied to new revenue streams for our service providers.
Thanks, everyone. We'll talk again in a few minutes, but it's time now for our first presentation. And we're going to start by hearing from Davide Cherubini, who is Senior Specialist Solutions Architect at Wind River. Davide will discuss what customers expect from an Open RAN cloud and the early improvements they are already seeing. Davide, tell us about the challenges your customers are experiencing with Open RAN and how can Wind River Studio support them on their Open RAN journey?
Thanks, Guy. What Wind River brings to Open RAN is actually many things. So the first one is experience with commercial deployments at scale with customers like Vodafone and Verizon, where we have tens of thousands of nodes already deployed in production. What we have there, we learn a lot of lessons, addressing challenges and issues that customers sometimes don't even know yet. For example, the deployment at scale, where we have to deploy tens of thousands of nodes in an automatic way in a very short time frame. And that is where automation brings a lot of benefits with its introduction. The second one is the operations at scale. What if you want to perform a software upgrade of thousands of nodes within the same maintenance window or overnight? That is where automation helps you. And that is why automation is a hot topic. Before moving to the innovation with partners, I will give some examples and some quotes from our customers. Let's start with Verizon. Like I said, Verizon has deployed in production tens of thousands of nodes running Wind River software. So Verizon has recognized the importance of introducing cloud technologies and automation in its networks. They can do operations and enhance and optimize the network like they never did before when they used physical appliances. The second quote I would like to use is from another customer of ours, which is Elisa in Finland. Elisa has introduced Wind River Studio, including its automation framework, for example, to deploy the new sites, the new Wind River Studio Cloud platform, our Kubernetes platform sites. And they compare the time and the effort needed to deploy this new site between manual processes and automated processes. So, and what they measured is they are reducing the operator time, which is the time that an engineer has to spend in front of the terminal to deploy the new site, by up to 90%. That's a 90. That's an incredible number. In terms of deployment time, the reduction was up to 50%. So that's half of the time and allows Elisa to introduce new technologies like Open RAN and other technologies in the market in a very short time frame. And thirdly, they measure the quality of the service they deploy. And this is very high because you reduce the risk of human error by using automation. The final quote I would like to use is from another customer, which is Vodafone. That is very dear to us. What is important in the Vodafone quote here is that Vodafone is measuring in their production environment some important key performance indicators, like 4G and 5G upload and download speed, as well as the call success rate. And they answer one question that we always get from our new customers or potential customers. Does Open RAN actually perform as well as traditional RAN? And the simple answer to this question is no. It does not perform the same. It performs much better. Vodafone has measured some of these KPIs to perform 5 times better than traditional RAN. So that's why it's important to have Open RAN technologies in the new networks. The third thing that we introduce is innovation working with partners. We have a partner program where we align roadmaps and where we validate across all the different partners, both hardware vendors and RAN application suppliers in our platform. And one example of this is what we developed with Dell Technologies, which is the Dell Technologies Infrablox solutions for Wind River, where we implemented the best-in-breed technology from Wind River, Dell Technologies, and Intel to provide a turnkey solution to our customers to accelerate the adoption of Open RAN. Back to you, Guy.
Thanks, Davide. And don't forget, if you have any questions on the presentation, then please send them in now, because we'll have time for Q&A at the end of the programme. Now, coming back to our guests, Paul, Davide made a bold statement there about virtual RAN being better than traditional RAN, and he shared some customer quotes highlighting some very impressive KPI results from current commercial deployments at scale. Are these results unique, or do they represent the results of the majority?
Thanks, Guy. Well, certainly very exciting, right? There's nothing quite like the voice of the customer to help you understand what the experience is really like. As an example, with the work that we're doing with Vodafone deploying Open RAN in the UK, Andrea Donna had come out and stated that 90% of all KPIs are equal to or superior to the legacy kit that they're swapping out. That's a tremendous statement. They also stated that this is a blueprint for success for their future network. The ability to take lift and shift and reuse this architecture, this implementation that's now been proven to highly scale their network in a rapid manner is really an incredible power for them to modernize their network. We've also seen with Elisa, as Davide just mentioned, that absolutely amazing statistics as you move to a software-defined environment, a 90% savings in manpower to deploy edge sites. Now, with tens of thousands of sites to deploy, think of the impact that has on the OpEx, both to deploy those sites and to continuously maintain them. So again, nothing quite like the voice of the customer here. And as you've seen through a variety of customer quotes in that recent video, we're seeing it pervasively. It's happening all across the networks that we see globally, North America, Europe, Japan. And also, this has informed the strategy that we have with Intel and Dell around the Dell infrastructure blocks with Wind River that enables us to pre-integrate and reduce the friction for adopting this technology. Obviously, as a carrier moves to a Kubernetes-based architecture using commercial off-the-shelf architectures based on processors from Intel and accelerators from Intel, there's a lot of expertise required to deploy that type of system and to maintain it. And the infrastructure block strategy allows us to completely integrate that outside of the customer environment and bring them a proven solution like the one that's being used in Vodafone in production today that can ease their adoption and enable them to rapidly launch Open RAN into the markets.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And there were some very encouraging customer comments we heard there. Christina, Davide mentioned the importance of automation. How have you seen automation play a key role in Open RAN deployments?
Before I get to your question, I want to make another comment on the importance of this customer testimony. When you have major operators, global operators with really high standards as far as requirements and really high standards as far as quality and KPIs, and when you hear these statements from them, then you know that we have reached the point of no return. We're not talking about something that is nice to do or cool to do. We're talking about the future. We're talking about progress, and you cannot stop progress. This is, I think, at this point, we are seeing the undeniable benefits of having a virtualized architecture, and this is where the industry is moving, and we'll see how we'll see the benefit of that coming back to the industry and to the entire society. But going back to your question on automation, so absolutely, automation is one of the most promising pillars, I'm gonna say, of innovation in the RAN, especially held or based on what we're doing in the Open RAN and virtualized RAN. I also mentioned, and I was saying this in the previous video, there is obviously a focus on and realization that we have to modernize the network and also monetize the network. Within that, monetize the network. So if you look at how do we monetize the network and how do we monetize the investment that have been done in 5G so far, everybody has that top of mind. Well, that's automation comes at the top, right? You could reduce significant significantly your total cost of ownership and your operation cost with automation, right? By virtualizing their 5G radio network, and then as part of that, also including new capabilities and new techniques such as artificial intelligence innovations, operators can significantly expand their range of network control, and they can automatically and proactively respond to the ever-changing network conditions and be a lot more efficient in their operation. Things like dynamic network configuration, traffic steering, optimized spectrum allocation, energy efficiency, proactive analytics, and proactive control. All this can be accelerated, all this can be done much more efficiently when you put automation in, again, a software-defined network running on a server architecture with many, many new capabilities. I'll tell you, for example, a few capabilities that we make available with our CPUs, Intel CPUs, and that can be very much utilized in a server architecture with a CAS layer such as the one provided by Wind River and a server architecture provided by Dell. You have new capabilities as far as telemetry that expose what is happening at the lowest layers and allow you to take measures and control resources based on that. We have what we call P states and C states that give you a lot of granularity in power management, automated power management. So things like that you wouldn't have unless you have this type of innovation. At the end of the day, the end goal, the dream of every operator is to have a zero-touch automation, having a network that is capable of self-learning, self-healing, self-correcting. And this is what we're getting. This is where we're going, again, because we have the right technology and the right network architecture underneath.
Thank you, Christina. So that's automation. Manish, interoperability and management and support across multiple parties has been mentioned as key main concerns when moving to Open RAN. How are Intel, Dell and Wind River working to ensure that Open RAN deployments meet the standards of traditional RAN networks?
Yeah, absolutely, Guy. Just before I come to that, let me just add a couple of more points around network KPIs and the readiness and the impact of automation. Another example, in addition to what was talked about around Verizon, Vodafone, and Elisa, is Dish Networks deployed a nationwide network, achieving a velocity of 1,000 sites a week, all fully automated, zero-touch provisioning, and delivering the network KPIs that, again, are at par and better in certain cases based against the legacy architectures. And these are all proof points of scale deployments in terms of how the technology has now matured and the automation pieces have fallen in place. So you can not only have automation towards day one, but day two lifecycle management of your infrastructure on a continuous basis. I do want to come back then to your question around integration and interoperability. That's continued work. And one of the things that we did around the Dell Technologies infrastructure block for Wind River was work very closely with Wind River to really bring and engineer the whole solution, do all that heavy lifting that's needed to be done to do that integration work upfront. We also aligned with Wind River and partnered very closely to have day two going forward. How do we provide unified support model? So when if there is any problem in the network, operators can get support and by just calling Dell, and we work very closely with Wind River. The other thing is this is not a one-time thing. There's a very close coordination with Wind River, with Intel on our roadmap planning on a continuous basis, and there are multiple releases planned per year. So there is continuous innovation, continuous improvement, and continuous delivery of those solutions to our customers. We're just at the starting point of reaping the benefits of this whole cloud transformation, because what we're going to see is the networks really benefiting from the economies of cloud, benefiting from automation and improving innovation at a much higher velocity, where the networks will truly start to innovate at the speed of software. And that's all coming as we start to transform these networks more towards cloud-native architectures.
Thanks very much, Manish. And thanks, everyone. Very useful insights from you all. And it's great to have this customer validation as well. That's been absolutely tremendous to hear. We're going to pause our discussion now because it's time for our next presentation. Matt Conrad is the vRAN Business Development Director for Intel Sales and Marketing, and he's going to look at some of the key learnings from early vRAN and Open RAN adopters. Matt, Intel has been supporting CSP RAN deployments for years. Are there any major takeaways you can share with us based on this experience?
Yes, thanks. There are absolutely some learnings from those operators that have introduced Open RAN already that can be leveraged to improve your own journey. Firstly, I would say start early. Start with your own field trials and pilots to get exposed to the technology. You won't be able to wake up in 2026 and introduce vRAN like you would a traditional RAN feature. This is a network transformation program, and it's important for you to talk to experts and start early and learn about the new technology. I would say secondly is to reuse proven Open RAN components. We're not yet at a point where you can, it's not quite Lego where you can pick, you mix and match all combinations. Integration does take some time, and for an operator introducing vRAN for the first time, the recommendation is to reuse proven components and use partners that have gone through deployment at scale already. You can always change after that. You can always mix in new components and your own flavor of the Open RAN stack after, but start with something proven. Will save you a lot of time. The third item that I'd like to highlight is we're now in a multi-company development environment. We don't have one company developing the entire Open RAN solution. We have many, and it's super important to find a way to not only communicate between these entities, but to also capture, reference configs and test setup and test parameters. Capture and maintain a configuration that you can communicate across these development parties. Again, going back to your own company learning, also critically assess your own capabilities for and internal competencies for doing things like system integration and tool development, where you cannot or don't think you want to do them yourselves. You will need to make some buy or partnership decisions. So critically assess what your own organization can and wants to do with a new technology. Some things, as we found out, can only be learned at scale and at cell edge and over temperature of a virtual RAN deployment. So as I mentioned earlier, start early, but also work with early pilots in a real life environment. And then lastly, and not to be minimized, Intel is here as a proven technology partner for the operator community. There are a series of best known methods and practices that we have accumulated, and we'll be happy to share those with you to ensure you get the most out of the underlying x86 technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. And if you have any questions on Matt's presentation, then send them in to us. In fact, we've had one question who's asked if this live show is going to be made available on demand later. Yes, it is. You can catch up and watch it all on demand if you missed any of the start. And there's time for some Q&A at the end of the show. Christina, Matt touched on starting early and testing with field trials or commercial pilots. How have you seen operators benefit from this approach, and how can you and your partners help them?
Yeah. First of all, love that video from Matt. Really enjoyed. And it's coming from everything that he said, completely, absolutely correct and right on point. All of that is coming from the experience and the years that we have working on this area, starting even at the virtualization of the core, and now all the years already that we have spent in the RAN. We're very proud to say that today nearly every vRAN deployment is really in the world is really happening, is running on Intel Xeon. And obviously we're super proud of that, but also that gives us a lot of experience and best known methods, I would say. So totally agree, start early and get it to work, right? Because here's the thing, the technology, and I have mentioned this before, the technology is ready today. We are going to continue investing in our roadmap. So it's going to be our partners here with me. We're going to continue making better and better. So always, there will always be something better coming up, but it is important to realize that we have today what we need to start. So fundamentally, key to successful, to a success journey is to start with those trials, those pilots, and moving on the scale, because as Matt said, is many times you learn things at a scale that you have no way to learn before that. I'm gonna say last year we launched what we call the 4th generation of Intel Xeon scalable processors with Intel vRAN Boost. Right? And we built this CPU with design with a purpose in mind to design for powering high performance, power efficient, and AI optimized vRAN. So we had the fully integrated vRAN acceleration directly into the CPU. No need to have any external components, reducing complexity, simplifying the design. Paul was talking about the importance of simplifying the design, having everything that is needed on the CPU, including AI capabilities, right? Because if we're going to start applying AI, and it's already starting to happen, you want to do it all within the CPU. You don't want to have an external, again, power hungry component consuming your resources. You want to be able to run the entire workload in the CPU. So that technology exists, and we have demonstrated how we were able to double the capacity, but also reduce the total power consumption compared to previous generation. I think the other thing to keep in mind in the recommendation to start early and using the technology today, one of the benefits of having a software-defined network running on a server architecture is the porting of the software. We have data from partners today that have been able to recompile the previous the software running on the previous generation, hit compile, and having in a matter of hours the entire software load running on the new generation. That doesn't happen unless you have this type of architecture. That just doesn't happen unless you're running a software-defined network on a server architecture based on Intel Xeon processor. So this is very powerful because everything that you're doing today, you will be able to reuse it and have right off the bat with a new generation a baseline that works and give you all the requirements that you need, and then you need to optimize and use the capabilities, of course, of the new generation. That's always there, but you have a really, really good start. So again, I think by now we have proven that vRAN solutions can compete on power and performance KPIs with purpose-built solutions. There's no trade-off here. We have what the industry needs for today and for the future. And, brownfield, greenfield, all across the world, just let's start early. Let's start with what we have today is ready, and let's scale.
Thank you very much, Christina. Well, we've got a lot to still get through on this show, so we just need to move on a bit. We've got a couple more presentations to go, but I do want to talk to Paul and Manish. Manish, we heard from Matt there about internal competence. So how does Open RAN change the way that operators deploy and support networks, and what skill sets are important for success? And also, how should they decide what to invest internally and what to outsource elsewhere?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Guy. I mean, to really think about it, and I'll again just take a practical example of working very closely with Dish as they were rolling out their Open RAN networks. They were first and foremost, it's to Matt's point, selecting the right partners and the right components of the solution. That's super important because you want to bring in the set of partners who are committed to actually making this happen, who have experience, who've already done this, who also have the right technology capabilities, but most importantly, who are really aligned, strategically to make Open RAN happen. So that's very important. Then the question comes in is what parts of this you do internally in-house as an operator versus what capabilities you expect from those partners. I can again just tell you in our experience, things like bringing the infrastructure block as pre-integrated capabilities to the service providers, that has obviously helped them in, again, not having to undertake all that integration work between the server platforms and the CAS layer and the automation layer, all that pre-packaged, so it starts to accelerate their deployment timelines. Also bringing in OTEL, our Open Telecom Ecosystem Lab, which is, again, number of operators who are right now in OTEL working with us and the partner ecosystem to do continuous integration, continuous validation. And then I'll again say, take a look at examples of Vodafone, of Dish Networks, where in certain cases, they've gone ahead and built capabilities and transformed how they procure, because you're now no longer procuring an appliance, you're procuring from an open ecosystem. So you need to transform how you convene and procure from an open ecosystem, building their own capabilities in terms of testing, validation, doing certain levels of integration. And then, of course, they have to build the capabilities to do these integration on a continuous basis. Because as I keep saying, this is about transforming the network to make it more cloud-like, achieving the economies of cloud, innovating at the speed of the software. That's the bottom line, right? This is what the North Star is. So building those capabilities are important. I'm going to probably stop here in the interest of time.
Thanks very much, Manish, because we have got a lot of viewer questions. Oh, they're all coming in now. They're all coming in at once. We've got dozens. Paul, we've got a full-length interview that we conducted with Matt where he speaks to some performance gains with Intel processors. And I understand that Wind River has made some optimizations here. Can you tell us what these are and how they factor into this tipping point moment for Open RAN?
Yes, and this also ties into the real need that our customers have to drive total cost of ownership down. The work that we've done with Intel really shows how these technology innovations can directly contribute to business results. In the case of working with Intel and implementing a CAS architecture, we've done some things that reduce the footprint requirement to a very small physical presence at the edge of the network. And then also within the processor architecture, taking our overhead software, because really the infrastructure and cloud infrastructure is overhead, right? You've got an infrastructure that hosts the application. You need to free as much compute possible for that application to run. And in the work we've done with Intel on the Sapphire Rapids program, we're pleased to announce that we actually run all the way down into a single processor core now for all of the overhead functionality. And this enables incredible TCO benefits for customers that are deploying this type of technology. And the second is that we did some work with Analysys Mason, where we surveyed CSPs that are actually deploying Open RAN technology. And they found that the greatest obstacle that they had was integration costs and complexity. And our ability to solve that problem with innovations like the Dell Telecom Infrastructure Block enable us to remove those costs and significantly improve the ease of adoption of these technologies, as we've talked about throughout the session here today. And that's another key obstacle remover for the adoption of these technologies.
Thanks very much, Paul. Well, we're going to pause once again because we have another short presentation for you. Divine Ofori-Amankwah is Principal Telco Solutions Architect, Telecom Systems Business at Dell Technologies, and he is going to discuss how to remove some of the deployment roadblocks we are seeing. Divine, Tell us why Dell Telecom infrastructure blocks can simplify vRAN and Open RAN deployments.
Dell Telecommunication Infrastructure Blocks for Wind River allow CSPs to automate their processes and take on all the best-in-class innovation that Dell has built together with our partners Intel and Wind River in realizing the benefits of an open, disaggregated, cloud-native network. We do this through 4 distinct approaches. 1, we ensure a faster time to market because we have an engineered, pre-validated design and solution that is loaded at the factory with all the software components so that it reduces the manual operations that a CSP would have traditionally done as hardware and software arrived at their cell site or at their network operation center. Secondly, we have ensured that we've built continuous improvement through our CI/CD pipeline to ensure that the benefits of a modern, evolving architecture are continuously introduced to the CSP. Thirdly, we have ensured that working together with a large ecosystem of NEPs and partners, we have pre-validated and tested the configurations for specific use cases that allows CSPs to rapidly onboard and reduce the activities from a day 0, a day 1, and a day 2 perspective and beyond that would have been required to stand up a telco cloud network, leveraging Dell Telecommunications Infrastructure Blocks for Wind River. Finally, we provide a unified end-to-end support from Dell, with Dell being responsible for all parts of the solution and providing the first level and second level support. This reduces the burden on the CSP, the communication services provider, to interface with 5 or 6 different vendors across the infrastructure, the CAS, the NEP, and sometimes the fault management stack. This is all now consolidated with Dell Technologies being your prime with the Dell Telecommunications Infrastructure Block, being able to help you quickly resolve issues, address the compliance metrics, and reducing the number of swivel chair of vendors that a CSP has to mediate, interact, and manage over the life cycle of the solution. These are a few of the reasons why we've introduced the Dell Telecommunication Infrastructure Block for Wind River, the benefits that it brings to operators, and we hope that operators can join us in this journey of realizing some of the benefits, the promises, and the gains of vRAN and ORAN, leveraging the innovation that we have introduced, and as we continue to introduce new versions in the coming years. Thank you.
Divine, thank you very much. And don't forget, if you have questions on Divine's presentation or on anything you have heard in the show so far, then please send them in now. It is getting late. We've already got a lot of questions, but if we don't answer them in this show, we will share them with our guests later. Now, back to our guests, and we heard from Divine on some of the roadblocks that CSPs face. Paul, let me come to you first. What do you see as the greatest roadblocks to virtual Open RAN at scale?
Thanks, Guy. I think 3 quick points. The first is that we're able to now deploy Open RAN with a proven integrated solution that's known to work from live deployment. And that further, once that solution is deployed in the network, it's continuously integrated for the lifetime of that deployment through the partnerships that we've shared here. And then finally, bringing in automation through proven seasoned deployment that allows us to incorporate learnings from live production deployments of Open RAN and increase the automation to reduce the OpEx for service providers, enables us to solve these challenges, right? These are obstacles, but they've now been solved, and that's why we've passed the tipping point with Open RAN.
It's great to hear. Thanks, Paul. And Christina, let's come across to you. What are you hearing, and how is Intel positioned to address these roadblocks?
Yeah, I'm just going to add, Paul expressed it really well. So I'm just going to add a little bit, totally agree with what Paul said, and just going to add a few or a couple of points there. Number one, in roadblock, I think we're at a point where we need to think how are we going to bring innovation faster. I think that's number one, because bringing innovation will result in lowering or reducing the total cost of ownership, which at the end of the day is what the operators are looking for. How are we going to reduce the total cost of ownership, but really focusing the total part of it, right? Not just one point, but that total operation, automation, everything, how that cost comes down, and how do we do it through bringing fast enough innovation. So that's number one. And then the other thing that I would say, obviously, we're here to work with our partners, to collaborate with you, to share our learnings, to expose all our capabilities that will bring that innovation and will bring all those new features that you would want in your network. We're here. We have been here for a while in this journey. Super happy to collaborate with you. And again, I will refer back to the partnership that we have, the fantastic partnership with Dell and Wind River.
Christina, thank you very much. And Manish, solutions like Dell's telecom infrastructure blocks certainly can help carriers to deploy Open RAN, but how do they help carriers in the long run as they pivot to this more dynamic software-led architecture? You know, how are you helping them stay ahead of issues like updates and patches?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of key things here just quickly to note. Integration of the server CAS layer, done. Automation, done. Proven at scale, done. KPIs delivered, done. But we're not stopping here. As Paul shared, there are more innovations coming. As I shared, we have our continuous roadmaps planned with multiple releases down the road, and on a continuous basis, delivering further innovation, further improvement to the service providers on an ongoing basis. I think it is important, since you touched on the roadblocks, it is important, in my view, to touch on the fact that the service providers also now are at a very, very interesting point that they need to think about transforming their own operations and really start to think about taking the advantages of AI and machine learning and deep learning that is very much here and now, and really driving that automation on steroids. To do that, you need to transform the network, the infrastructure, put the right cloud native infrastructure, the cloud native architectures all in place that starts to pave the way for bringing that hyper automation onto your networks, cut that OpEx out further of the network, and deliver better quality. It's going to become a differentiator in the marketplace, and it's going to deliver much better TCO, much better bottom line to the service provider. So I do think this transformation is undergoing, is essential, and it's paving the way for what's going to be the next biggest transformation of bringing AI, machine learning, deep learning onto the networks.
Thanks, Manish. We've just had a question in early in the program from an operator in Scandinavia about what's holding the industry back. So these answers to the roadblocks has nicely answered that, and a couple of other questions. In fact, we've just had a question in about TCO, which actually we're going to come to right now, because we are going to take a look at the total cost of ownership question now. For our final presentation today, we are going to hear from Ravi Kalyanakoti, who is Principal Telco Solutions Architect, Telecom Systems Business at Dell Technologies. Ravi, how does Dell Telecom Infrastructure Blocks for Wind River help operators maximize TCO for Open RAN and vRAN deployments?
Thanks for that question. As customers, telco operators are going through transformation from a vertically integrated RAN solution to a virtual RAN, Open RAN deployment, there are a couple of challenges that they have. The first challenge is an integration challenge. With an open disaggregated RAN network, there are multiple pieces that needs to be integrated, starting from hardware, cloud platform, RAN, CU, DU components, OSS, BSS, and management layer on top of that. This needs to be integrated. What was previously done by a vertical solution vendor now needs to be done either by the customer themselves or a system integrator. The second challenge that Open RAN brings in is you have tens of thousands of edge nodes where the DUs need to be deployed across geographically spread in a distributed fashion. This cannot be managed simply without having a very strong automated zero-touch provisioning. To address these challenges, we work with our partners, Wind River and Intel together, and then built a solution called Dell Telecom Infrastructure Blocks for Wind River, which is optimized for a virtual RAN, Open RAN deployment, and it is pre-integrated and pre-engineered by Dell. The way it addresses the TCO challenges and then maximizes customers' TCO are, one, it includes Intel's latest fourth generation Xeon Scalable processors, which is significantly performance improved as compared to the third generation processor. Second, it includes Wind River Cloud Platform, which is built and optimized for an Open RAN, virtual RAN, distributed, low latency type of requirements. Third, we bring in a pre-integrated engineered solution which alleviates the integration challenge and reduces operational costs that the customer needs to spend. Fourth, we bring in automation which enables the customer to deploy the network with zero-touch provisioning and also manage the network in the day-to operations in a very automated process. These are the value, these are the technology advantages. In order to show this in a quantified manner, Dell has built a TCO analysis tool working with an analyst firm called ACG Research. We have, in fact, published white papers with our analysis comparing scenarios for network deployment with infrastructure block and without infrastructure block. The white papers are available on our website, download. There's also a QR code using which you can download that. In addition, what we're doing is we're working with telco operators and modeling their specific network architectures in the TCO analysis tool, and then doing scenario analysis specific for them, which will make it available for them, which we believe will help them include in their overall TCO and then make a decision towards Open RAN vRAN deployment. With the solution infrastructure block with Wind River and the TCO tool that we've developed, we believe this is going to help our telco operators maximize the TCO, but also this is going to accelerate adoption of virtual RAN and Open RAN networks for all the telcos. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ravi. Well, now that we've watched all our presentations, it's time to have a brief chat with our guests, and then we'll take a look at some of the questions we haven't covered so far in our discussion. Now, we talked a lot about the upfront challenges, so let's now come back to the benefits. And Christina, let me start with you. What do you believe are the key drivers behind the industry transformation, and what are the greatest benefits?
Yeah, I'll go back to the realization that we have to have a modern network that can be ready for today use cases and today requirements, but also ready for the future that will enable progress and evolution and progress of the network. So having that software defined network, we need that. The levels of automation, the levels of innovation that we will be able to bring, the level of total cost of ownership, that undeniable will be superior in this type of network architecture.
Thank you, Christina. Manish, Ravi mentioned some significant TCO savings, and the whole topic of TCO is proving very popular with our viewers. Are there any additional details you can provide on the importance and impact of these savings?
Yeah, I mean, the impact, first of all, is pretty significant in terms of the TCO saving itself across the entire life cycle, right from day zero, all that integration work being done, to day one in terms of introducing this and deploying the solution, but then doing that in a very automated way from a life cycle management perspective. And this all starts to deliver significant OpEx and CapEx gains as well. And there is, as Ravi touched on, there's a recent paper from ACG Research that's available. It's in the public domain. I would encourage the viewers to go download it. And we're working with some of the service providers to then take a look at their traffic models and further fine-tuning it in terms of what the TCO gains are to be had with infrastructure block. But I'll say this, to me, that TCO gains are the starting point. This transformation of building cloud-native infrastructure is actually putting the basic layers in place and the plumbing in place that, as Christina said, is going to drive more automation and more innovation. And with AI, machine learning coming in, collecting the right kinds of telemetry data at the infrastructure layer, at the network layer, and then applying AI machine learning to optimize the networks, to improve energy efficiency of the networks, to improve planning, forecasting. It's going to touch all aspects and deliver even further benefits from a TCO perspective. And that's why this transformation of the radio access network with Open RAN is essential. Most of the service providers have started, and I know others are also planning to get initiated on this.
Indeed. Thanks very much, Manish. And Paul, Ravi talked there about streamlining infrastructure design, delivery, and maintenance. From your perspective at Wind River, what does that really mean?
Well, I think we start by really listening to our customers. Famously over a year ago at Vodafone, Iago Tenorio and his team released a white paper to the industry, basically saying, look, we love this technology. We want it. We believe it's the future of network design, but it's too costly to integrate. It's too complex to deal with the multi-vendor environment. The industry has to solve that problem, right? And that was a challenge given to the industry over a year ago. I view the Dell Telecom infrastructure blocks and the partnership that we've created here with the fully integrated solution that's continuously integrated and has deployment history now in Open RAN as the exact solution to that challenge from our customer. We've also seen customers that have directly challenged us, look, you've got to get this solution to be superior than traditional RAN. If we look at the traditional appliance-based RANs, they have the benefit of many, many years of deployment and stability work. We're now at that same place with Open RAN and Virtual RAN, where we have a fully integrated solution that we've proven in live deployment can be upgraded and maintained faster than traditional RAN equipment. So I think these things are really important to remove some of the obstacles that you're talking about.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. Well, we promised we would address some of our viewer questions, and we've been doing that during the program, and a number of the questions have been covered off by your comments already, which is great. So a lot of the main topics are covered, but there are a couple of specifics I wouldn't mind throwing out and getting some brief comments before we wrap up the show, because we are approaching the end. I've got a question here from a European operator about hypervisors. It's a simple question. Is the inclusion of a hypervisor at the edge required as a part of this new Open RAN software infrastructure that we're talking about? Paul, are you able to come straight back to you and pick up on that one?
Sure. So obviously we provide that virtualization layer of technology in these networks. We're seeing that in the RAN, given that it's mostly greenfield architecture, it's predominantly container-based solutions. We do have the ability to support a hypervisor for certain, you may need a singular VM to provide some functionality, for example. But generally the deployments to date are fully cloud native using container technology based on Kubernetes. Great.
Thanks very much, Paul. A question here about servers as well. Does the life cycle of COTS servers, which the viewer says is shorter than dedicated servers, does this impact the choice of operators to go down an Open RAN route? Is the server choice an important factor here? Anybody want to Manish, are you able to take a hardware question for us?
Yeah, I can take that. I think as I touched on earlier, we went ahead. I mean, as part of our server portfolio, we went ahead and introduced XR8000 as a server very much built for RAN and edge workloads. And as I touch, it offers all the capabilities and meets the requirements that are very much needed for RAN-like workloads, which is shorter factors, shorter depth servers, NEPS compliance, extended temperature ranges, compliance to that, and more. And it's a sled-based design. So this is the other important thing. It provides the future-proof upgradability. So you can continue to take advantage as more silicon innovation comes in the next gen cycle to really ease of upgrading. The other thing is ease of serviceability, ease of maintainability. So I just want to call this out that yes, there are specific capabilities to again make that server more robust for the RAN kind of deployment environments. And I would again encourage the viewer to take a look at XR8000.
Great, Manish, thank you for that. I'm just looking down here. We have a question that says we focus on the telcos and broad market coverage, but what about enterprise sector and private 5Gs? Is there a role for Open RAN there, and will that further continued deployment of Open RAN at scale? Christine, I think, are you able to take that one for us?
Sure. Yes, and the answer is absolutely. We are going to be the 5G private and enterprise market expand in the next years, this year and the next. Again, that's inevitable. We're going in that direction, and that's the beauty of this architecture that we're deploying and developing in RAN. It's the same. That same architecture can be using 5G private and enterprise. And imagine the amount of developers in the world that know this open common platform, that knows this software that can go and do vertical solutions for this platform. So the opportunities and the possibilities are infinite. And again, this is the right architecture. That's another point why it's so important to choose the right architecture, one that is being leveraged across multiple verticals and segments.
Great. Thanks very much, Christina. And Paul, did you quickly want to come in on that one as well?
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with what Christina said. We're seeing a lot of new applications in automotive manufacturing environments, the use of augmented reality and acceleration in these nodes. The ability to deploy private 5G with an Open RAN architecture allows you to leverage that virtualized compute platform in the enterprise environment to add more applications in that stack. And that's something that's very, very unique with an Open RAN architecture, because you're really using Kubernetes and virtualized infrastructure that you can then host other applications that can help you monetize or simplify your enterprise environment, especially in industrial, manufacturing, and medical markets.
Thanks, Paul. I don't know where the time has gone. We've covered a lot of ground on the program today, so let's now summarize our discussion and bring it to a conclusion. Because reaching a tipping point means we're on the path towards scale. So let me quickly ask each of you in turn, how do you continue to innovate in order to support this continued transformation growth? And Christina, I'll come to you first.
Absolutely. And this is what we're fully committed to from Intel. We're going to continue investing in our roadmap. We're going to continue listening to our customers, and we're going to continue providing the baselines and the foundational of the network architecture to our operators, to the operators in the world, so they can get the best results.
Thank you, Christina. And Paul, let me come to you next. How are you going to keep on innovating?
So I think we're now at a point in time, at this tipping point, where we've had years of development and deployment exposure to the CaaS infrastructure layer, the container as a service architecture for cloud-based deployment. What we're seeing now is the area of innovation is heavily around artificial intelligence and automation to ease the operations burden for the service provider that's trying to manage and deploy applications in this environment. So I think you're going to see a wave of innovation around the automation problem to help operate these networks as we go forward.
Great. Thanks very much, Paul. And Manish, sum it up for us then. How do you continue this rate of innovation?
Yeah, open disaggregated cloud native networks is at the heart of our efforts at Dell Technologies. And we have a pretty robust roadmap working with our partners to continue to improve both the server form factors, bring more capabilities to the service providers, work with partners like we just talked about on the infrastructure block with Wind Rivers to continue to do more integration work and deliver the solutions with continuous innovations on an ongoing basis. But also looking forward, as I touched in my answers earlier, AI, machine learning, deep learning, and for that matter, even generative AI. We see that these are going to be very transformational in terms of how networks are planned, deployed, operated, optimized, and managed. And this is going to touch all aspects of it. And these are the next set of innovations and areas that we are starting to focus on, building our own set of technologies and portfolios on AI and machine learning, but also working with an open ecosystem so we can continuously co-innovate and deliver those innovations to the service providers.
Thank you very much, Manish. And final comment to Christina. Do you have any parting advice for operators who perhaps are on the verge of testing this new approach to RAN deployments?
Absolutely. First of all, we're here for you, for the operators, to be your trusted partner and or vendor and advisor. Just look at the data, see what is happening in the world, reuse the blueprints that exist, look at the learnings, reach out to us, and just make it happen. Go for it. Start small, start with what exists today, go to the trial, lab trial, field trials, and then scale. Technology is ready. Let's just get it going.
Yep, get it going. Christina, thank you very much indeed. We must leave it there though. Thank you all so much for taking part in this program. And if you would like any more information on anything you saw or heard in the program today from any of the presentations or any of the guests, then please do get in touch with us. Or you can follow the links below this video for additional resources. For now though, thank you very much for watching and goodbye.